Recently, I had posted a reel about workplace red flags, and it was a short 1 minute clip where I briefly discussed a few red flags that we usually see in our workplaces. It got so massively successful, it is sitting close to about 1 million views, with over 20,000 people who've liked it and 25,000 people have shared it with their friends. As a result of that, some of you guys had shown interest to have this as a whole workshop, which we eventually did. And I thought it'll be beneficial to the masses if I could dub that in English, because that was originally in Hindi, and present it to all you guys here. So here's the snippet of that long workshop. So watch this full video, share your experiences, what has your experience been with workplace red flags, how have you dealt with it, and so on. The video starts with a very practical question somebody asked me, which was, we do keep seeing these red flags as far as our personal relationship is concerned. Why is then there a need for us to also be wary about and worry about these red flags at workplaces? So here's the answer. When it comes to any type of relationship, whether it is personal relationship at your home, with your brother, with your sister, family, significant other, or really with anyone else, or if it is the same type of relationship in your office, which is not personal in nature, but at the end of the day, there are two or more people involved, whether it is your team, colleagues, downline, your subordinates, or your seniors. There is a working relationship involved. And wherever there are two or more humans involved, it becomes absolutely necessary to identify some green flags and some red flags. We work and we get our salary at the end of the month. But in that 1 month, in that one place, with those few people who you work with, it is absolutely important that there is a healthy atmosphere. When you work in a workplace, some red flags, some amber or orange flags, as you can call them, basically you want to know which are the things that are negotiable and which are non-negotiable. It is absolutely important to know. So I'm going to tell you a few red flags. The first and the most important one, which I believe, especially in today's time, is whether you are overburdened, whether you are burnt out. So normally what happens in a work environment, especially if you're working in a high-performing team where your clients are high-visibility client, your work, your project, the company has a lot of stake over it. So there's so much work to be done, and you're also involved in such a way that before you know it, you are giving more than 100% in it. So if you are overburdened, if you're burnt out, if you're being asked to work on weekends, even if on weekdays your hours are being stretched to 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, then this is a very big red flag. Now, what you want to ask yourself is this happening occasionally or once in a few months? There was a project, a deliverable in which you had to go above and beyond, I understand. And to ensure that deliverable, like I said, few things are negotiable. Keep in mind that for your growth, it is necessary that you do such projects where you can show that you've performed and gone above and beyond. But if this is happening on a regular basis, then you will have to think twice that if this is something that you are okay with. Most people will not be okay with this in the long term. Yeah, like I said, if this is happening on a regular basis, if this is a pattern in your team and in your organization as a whole, you should set up a meeting with your one-up, which is the manager, director, whosoever it is that you report to or the leader of the team is, and set the right expectation. Now, what happens is when you are young, just say fresh out of college, you go to a corporate environment, you are excited to work and, it is almost a must. You have little leeway there because you are single, at least you don't have a family to go back to. Or even if you have a family to go back to, they will understand it and so on, right? So initially, this is still acceptable to some reasonable extent. But if you have a family, you are living with them, you have kids, for example, who are expecting you at 6:30, 7 p.m. at home. And if you're feeling overworked in the office, this is a big red flag again, for which you should set right expectations with your manager. In terms of where you can stretch and go above and beyond, and if you are going above and beyond in your work, in your efforts, then for that, there should be some element of compensatory arrangement. Many people, if they work on weekends for an important project that is, then in the following week or in the following couple of weeks, they are given a compensatory off in lieu of the Saturdays and Sundays that they've worked for in the past. This is a question you want to ask yourself. Are there any rewards or incentives in place in terms of compensation? This is an important question, but if there is none, then this is a very big red flag. There's another red flag which at least I have been very keen on in my career with my teams, is to ensure that every employee, after fulfilling the role that they were hired for, are there any learning and development opportunities or any training opportunities for them? Because if you're doing the same thing for over 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then obviously you are not growing. Unless that is an option you choose for yourself, because there are many people who do not want to grow for reasons best known to them. And there's no judgment in that. I mean, if somebody has that priority, I mean, my due respect to that. But if you are somebody who wants to grow in your career, wants to climb the ranks, wants to climb the leadership ladder, then this is very important that you upskill yourself. Now, upskilling, either you will do it outside the organization at your personal level, at your personal cost. Let's say you take up any certifications or courses, or you will do it inside the organization, right? So this is a red flag in organizations where there's no upskilling internally, or there is no opportunity for development. That whichever organization you're working in the last 6 months to a year's time, apart from the core responsibilities that you were assigned to, have they given you any other responsibilities? Have they enabled any training so that you can work on some other skill or add it on to your equivalent? Are there any courses that you can pursue so you can qualify for higher positions in this organization? This is very important. If this has not happened, then I would say talk to your manager or your leader. And if they do not allow it, because sometimes budgets are not available immediately, etc., think about this. If there are 15 people in the team and all 15 of them say that we have to do these certifications, we have to do these courses, and go ahead and enable it for all of us, obviously it cannot be done. So for that, you have to show your base performance, right? You have to show productivity in the past few quarters or a year or what have you. And then on that basis, you will be given that opportunity. It may take time, but hold your manager accountable to that. Be specific in your communication that I do need these opportunities to grow. And if they are not there, then obviously it's a red flag. Another red flag that I talk about a lot is favoritism, or any other type of politics in a work environment, right? Favoritism is a very slippery slope, because many a times you are the beneficiary of favoritism. You know what I mean? So basically, favoritism is happening in your favor for you at the cost of others in the team. Then you would hardly feel that it's wrong. You feel hunky-dory, that this is a good thing for me, where all the opportunities are being given only to you, or the promotions are being given to you, etc. You are the only beneficiary, basically, right? So many times it is seen openly and many times it is seen hidden to people. But this is very wrong as a concept. That is why I put it in a category of red flag, because if it is happening for you too, then you understand that this is a culture of the team or that organization, that this modus operandi is that of this particular manager. And today you are his favorite because he's getting something from you, whether it is performance, numbers, productivity, and so on. But tomorrow, when that thing is not there, then someone else will be his favorite. And that is when it will backfire you. So it is extremely crucial that favoritism should not be accepted as a culture. This is a red flag. And if you cannot avoid it, then wait for the right time and opportunity and try to move out of this team, if not quit that organization. You can definitely complain, but ultimately, if the culture of the organization is such where politics is being encouraged, then it is going to end in a scenario at the end of which you would find that by choice or by force, you will have to quit that organization, right? So it is better that rather than getting into an ugly discussion, you leave from there. Yes, fighting for your rights is something I definitely support. In fact, I often say that if you do not stand for yourself, do not expect anybody else to come and stand for you. But if you think you can win this battle, because mostly the managers and their higher managers and upper leadership are super formidable and influential. They have, compared to the people on the ground, more visibility. They have more say, whether you like it or not. So if you are picking that kind of battle with them, then you should know what you are fighting for. You should know all the nitty-gritties that you can maneuver from here to there. My point was only that you would rather want to choose peace of mind. You are going to work there. You are not going to do all this there. Because ultimately, by doing this, you will also get involved in politics inadvertently. And that will defeat the purpose of this whole effort. Similarly, there's another red flag, which is gossip culture. Now, what happens in a gossip culture is that people in the organization are busy gossiping about each other, their bad habits, pulling somebody's leg. I mean, you're going there to work. So your primary motive is to complete that work given to you and ensure that the environment becomes conducive even for the other people to be able to work. But if that is not happening and there are only gossips going around, then first of all, you have to identify which groups are gossiping and you have to steer clear of them. Second, again, if your organization's culture discourages these things, then you report it to the right authorities, to HR or your manager. But if the culture itself is such where these things are either condoned or forgiven, or they don't give too much value to all these kind of things, then this is a red flag. There's another red flag, which is a different kind of politics in the name of feedback, which is called criticism. Constantly, if you're being pointed out for every single thing, every single task, every single email, every single communication, and it is being shown as if you're incompetent or you don't understand anything, then this is not feedback. That is criticism. And after being constantly pointed out, you should understand that there is some kind of personal vendetta or there is some other reason because this is not a healthy feedback. So the differentiator between feedback and criticism is what you have to identify. If you are given constant feedback from time to time, and you're also given a leeway to work on your tasks, and obviously that is necessary for your growth, this is something you will enjoy and appreciate. But if you are being nagged constantly, then you won't appreciate it, and you should not either. If you're being called out, then this is a red flag, where you should make the right decision for yourself. I'll tell you about another important red flag, which is micromanagement. Now, who is a micromanager firstly? A micromanager is someone who monitors every activity of yours. You know what I mean? I've hired you for a task and I have hired you in most cases because you have done that kind of work. That is why you're there. Now, when you are skillful in that work, isn't it my responsibility as a manager to give you a free hand to do that work in your own style? But if I start monitoring your activities at every step of the way, then that person will be choked. So I had a colleague who was in another department. His manager was based in the US. He was based here in India and working in the evening hours, right? His manager had an instruction for him that as soon as he logs in the evening, the first thing he has to do is to share his screen with his manager. And by the time he logs out, the screen share should be constantly on. Do you understand how choking it can be for someone that you come and share the screen for 8 to 9 hours of your work and if you're taking a break, how long that break is? Like everything is being monitored there. This is a prime example of micromanagement. There's one more thing. In many organizations, there are time monitoring systems. They check your login and logout times and also check how long you took a break. That's normally in call centers and outsourced processes, etc. And believe it or not, it still exists today. Every single second is being monitored. Whether your manager is sitting in front of you or in any corner of the world, you are constantly being monitored. So freedom is over. The ability of the person to work comes from his creativity. Productivity is a function of creativity, and you have killed it by doing this. If you constantly keep monitoring me, how will I be able to do my work? If micromanagement is a culture that your company promotes, then please do not work in such a culture. Because if you find it normal, then you have been working in such a culture for far too long. So much so that you don't even know what is the real fun of working. I will go as far as saying that this is nothing short of slavery. So this is another big red flag. And there are many other red flags, but these are the primary ones that if there are multiple red flags in your organization, then you have to think about whether you are working at the right place or not and act accordingly. By this time in the discussion, I thought we had spoken at length about the workplace red flags, but it was time to also talk about certain aspects of organizations which make them a healthy workplace, which is the green flags, in other words. So here is that bit. In today's times, in the contemporary scenario, especially post-COVID, where people have made mental well-being their priority, I'm talking about the employees, organizations are understanding more than ever before that mental well-being is the topmost concern of employees. And so should it be their concern to provide an environment where they are mentally and physically fit. Ultimately, when you work in a private job, it is important for you to understand that without hard work, you cannot be successful there unless there is favoritism, which in and of itself is a red flag. But genuinely on the basis of merit, if you want to succeed, grow, reach good ranks, draw good salaries, attain those high paying jobs, then hard work is necessary. Along with that, private jobs are ultimately a business. So they're not a charity, I mean. So it is very important for you to understand that you will have to work hard, but it should not happen in a way where organizations and employers are driving their productivity at the cost of mental well-being of employees. Hey, sorry for a quick interruption, but if you are liking this video, why don't you drop a like to this video and also share it with at least one person who you think would appreciate this knowledge. This will also help us get in front of more and more people, and this video will be shown to more people like you who can extract value from this. Thank you very much. Back to the video. So the first green flag that I personally see in the organizations I work for is that mental well-being is given priority. There are some teams where their leaders are very specific about their team's mental well-being. So for example, mental health leaves are given to them. And if your organization is like that, you should certainly continue to be there. Another green flag is open communication. Transparently, openly sharing your team's project-related updates and other aspects relating to the business is absolutely a green flag. Apart from this, collaboration is a big green flag. I'm a big advocate of it. If you're going to work, don't work in silos. You can never establish a time-bound and effective result from that. If you want to do that, it takes a village, as they say. So if you have a strong team, it is important to utilize the maximum potential, and that can be done through collaboration. And this is a big green flag for me. When I was working in my team and I had global teams, I had teams in India, Philippines, in the US. Everyone has different cultures and different way of working. But because these regions are an extension of each other, right? So one global team, the comparison is bound to come. So people in India reported and complained that they were working very hard, stretching their hours. But in the Philippines, for example, there were a few who were not performing up to the standard and they were laid back. And they would also complain that in the US, they would shut down their laptop by 5 p.m. So there was a disengagement. It was important to bring everybody together and establish a standard way of working. So for this, I designed an SOP where everybody worked on it and signed up for it. So your demographics and cultural differences would remain. You cannot change your culture, your country's culture, or your work style. But as far as the workflow is concerned, you can commit to it unanimously. This is what we were able to establish. So again, collaboration is something that everybody should look for in an organization. Apart from this, growth opportunities. Like your immediate manager, are there any opportunities that he is giving you timely? It could be upskilling or giving you some additional tasks other than what you're doing and moving you forward in the ranks in your corporate. So that's another green flag that one should certainly look for. And if you have that, stay there. At this point, a very practical question came about, which is pertinent to the contemporary scenario we have, especially after COVID, which is also known as remote work. They asked me, how has remote work changed the perspective of employees and people in viewing these red flags? Here is the answer. On a broader level, red flags are mostly the same, but especially after COVID, work from home has become, a norm in most organizations. So the teams started working in an isolated manner. We're talking about collaboration, right? Now, even if collaboration is happening, it is happening virtually. You're not working together. So the kind of synergy that you could establish working under one roof is no longer there. For that, it is important that organizations enable their leaders and managers to have a regular check-in with their teams, whether it is virtual or on a video call or whatever, as opposed to a phone call that, for example, happens once in a quarter, 3 months that is. So it is better to have regular check-ins. And again, as I said earlier, communication should be maintained. Do not over-communicate and do not under-communicate, but do communicate. Now, this is something you want to ask yourself as a manager, right? Are there any events that you could do, some fun events on a virtual basis if you're not able to get everybody together? Is there anything you could do, let's say on a Friday or any other day where the work volume is less? So there is some sort of an engagement within the team because it is extremely crucial. If that does not happen, then, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So that becomes a red flag. And it is imperative that mental health leaves, like I told you, is something that must be prioritized, especially if your teams are remote. Because when this work from home culture started post-COVID, it seemed like a lot of fun to work from home. But soon enough, people realized that working from home is actually very, very challenging as opposed to working from an office. Because when you're working from home, your working hours are mostly, the lines are blurred with your family time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some people do not even have a home office. How about that? They work in their bedroom. And there are all kinds of disturbances, right? So there could be house help or maids. There are kids, some relative knocking the door. When you are in the office, you're not at home, period. You're not existing there in that moment. But when you are at home, you have to attend to everything. So at such times, we have seen, all of us have, that mental health of most of the people went for a toss. For them to even comprehend this situation, it took them a long time. And by the time they realized that they're just not able to manage all this, their mental health deteriorated further. At such times, it is important that the managers give the mental health leaves, as I told you earlier, to their teams at any cost. At this point, there was another good question that came about, which was, can organizations not come up with a mental health leave policy? Here is the answer. There's no such policy in organizations for mental health leave. Not that I know of, at least. There could be, but for the most part, I don't think that there is a policy. The policy is for sick leave. So let me tell you a funny thing. I used to tell my teams, you can call in sick if you are sick. But if you're not sick and still want to take the day, please call in sick and tired. Yeah, I mean, I'm sick and tired of work. I just want to take a leave. So take a leave or two, but just make a plan. As I told you, if you have set a team as a leader in a collaborative manner, then people will handle the burden of work as your backup. As a team player, how do you want to work? What is team coordination? How do you want to do the team management? This is another podcast in and of itself, which we will cover some other day. But if you are sick and tired for any reason, then the manager or the management of the company should have a provision to give those mental health days or leaves to their people. Why do these red flags exist in an organization? Employees at the ground level cannot be held responsible for these red flags. If they're not getting encouragement from the middle or the upper management for a particular red flag, like let's say politics or gossip, then the culture of the organization cannot deteriorate. So to take any organization in the right or a wrong direction, managers or the higher leadership, the upper management, are entirely responsible. This is actually a good question because it's very important that the managers are held accountable for these things. I'm going to tell you a few things here, that I have personally experienced that are imperative for leaders, right? Firstly, it is the employee satisfaction, meaning your accountability as a leader, because you're not working on the ground. You're not the execution arm, right? So you have to ensure that the execution arm, which is the employees, they're working productively. But are they happy there? That's the question you want to ask yourself. Like I said, only work and productivity without any mental health, mental peace, satisfaction, happiness is utterly useless. So there are employee satisfaction surveys and voice of employees, and there are different nomenclature. But on their results, all these managers should be held directly accountable. Similarly, employee retention is another metric. So in your leadership, your teams, your entire organization, how many people were retained in a given time and how many people left? Many teams are such where I personally know it was a revolving door. A revolving door, for those who don't know, is just a jargon, which means people are coming and people are going, right? So they're joining, they're leaving, and the door is always revolving. So is this the only thing going on there in that team or the organization as a whole? And there is no retention at all? So this is a metric where leaders should be held directly accountable. Then productivity. They were retained, sure, but is there a slack in the company or the team? Are they even productive? Are they performing? So that is a third metric where I believe managers should be held accountable. Apart from this, the prime responsibility of a leader is to delegate or pass along the accountability. Meaning you are a leader and you have to get people to work, right? So the way the upper management is setting accountability to you as the leader of the group, you have to in turn pass it along to the team. But along with that, you also have to ensure that there is productivity, right? So there is a balance that you have to strike between accountability and authority. So in this case, leaders should strike a balance between autonomy of work and accountability. So effectively, this balance is between giving your people a free hand to work and setting accountability. And the leader who is able to strike the right balance between the two is a true leader. Now, when you are giving accountability to people, there comes delegation of responsibilities. Meaning, you are distributing responsibilities to other people in your team. From delegation, they will get opportunities to work on new roles, responsibilities, and to prove themselves and grow, which again is a green flag. This also has dual benefits to a leader. Firstly, you got your work done effectively and you were able to reduce the workload. Second is your succession planning is also ensured. So succession planning simply means like a successor when you grow in your team, who's going to fill your shoes, who will sit in your chair. So you have to plan that succession, right? If you are the team manager, now you're becoming a director, who's going to sit in my chair, right? That's what succession planning is. So ideally, the successor should come from your team rather than you going out of the organization and hiring. So if you work on your succession planning and delegate responsibilities to the other team members, I used to say in my team, delegate and elevate. So delegate responsibilities and elevate yourself, or elevate your team as well. Autonomy, which I mentioned earlier, along with accountability, you have to operate with trust. So I like to operate off of trust rather than on control. Because for me, trust comes much cheaper than control. Control has a huge cost, which you will have to pay eventually. And it's a different discussion, for another day between trust and control. But yes, when it comes to accountability of leaders, it is important to establish trust and increase people's risk appetite, so that your people take the risk. And if anything was to go wrong, you should be able to be the one who should come forward and take the blame as a leader. So these are some best practices for leaders. You see, not every person comes to the corporate to grow. If there are 15 people in my team and 15 out of 15 want to grow, that is going to be a problem. Or even if they want to grow, they don't want to grow at the same pace. There could be somebody who wants to take the next role in, let's say, 6 months. And there could be somebody who would want to first master what they're doing, the base responsibility, and then take up the next role. So this is nothing but an individual choice. If you're, let's say, in a small town, or if you work in a certain company, and if you want to stay there, if you have drawn a periphery around you, then this is your personal choice. But if you do want to grow, if you do want to be successful, and I said this before, to grow in corporates is going to be a very tough deal. To crack that corporate code where you're able to attain that high-paying job or basically reach that level, And that's not going to be easy. It's going to be a very tumultuous journey. It's definitely one of those things where you will have to work hard. You will have to slog for you to be able to reach that level. Another aspect of this is that if you look at yourself as a person of that organization, an employee of that organization, that's a very limited thought. You should always look at yourself as a person of that particular industry you work for. So what's the difference? What industry does your organization belong to? What are the other organizations that work in that industry? Who are your competitors, both direct and indirect? Are you doing something for them? From a perspective of thought leadership, that is, right? Have you done anything in the way of thought leadership? Do you contribute anything to that community as a whole? Your organization would never stop you. I mean, go ahead, make a LinkedIn profile and start contributing, articles to any thoughts, recent trends in your industries, anything that benefits your industry or your community as a whole. That's where you get the visibility from, and it's also called personal branding. Go ahead, make your personal brand and open up avenues for yourself. If you restrict yourself and your mentality, then you are responsible for your future, at least as far as corporate life is concerned, that is. It's an amazing question. I think I had missed out on clarifying this, but really I love this question. So by talking about these red flags, I do not mean that if any of these red flags exist in your organization, just go ahead and resign tomorrow morning. That is absolutely not the intent behind discussing this topic. The best test of a good relationship is in bad times. It's not when the times are good. Today, the market forces might be against the employees, and it's a pretty bad time if you look at it, from recession to layoffs to everything else that's going on. It's brutal, the market that is right now. This is where the real test of your organization's culture is. It is now that you have to identify these red flags, but do not necessarily immediately act upon those until you have another option that is either similar or better. But do not forget that. Just keep these things in your mind, because the real character of an organization comes out in times like these. So keep an eye out, watch for these signs, and when the time is right, take the appropriate action. So that's it for the video. I hope you find some value today in this discussion talking about the workplace red flags and green flags. What has your experience been with the red flags and green flags? What is that you particularly look for as green flags in any organization that you work for, as much as also the red flags? Talk to us about that. Use the comment section below. I usually try to answer all the comments, which in this case also I would love to get back to you. If you think there are any other related topics about leadership that you would like me to cover, please feel free to suggest those in the comments as well. Please ensure that you are following me on all these social media links, and make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel as well. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take it easy and always strive to be the learner.